Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the fourth of our teacher takeaway webinars from Myanmar, British Council Myanmar. It's my pleasure to join you again. My name is Fraser Buick. I'm a senior academic consultant with the British Council, and I'll be the facilitator again today for the fourth event. As you can see from today's opening slide, today's focus is on materials development in the gender context. So I hope this is something that we can apply to all of our classrooms, and we can take some real tips and practical ideas from today's webinar to do so. Now, I'd like to move into our first few slides, and that will give us an introduction to today's event, but also some of the housekeeping to understand, for those of you who haven't been able to join us on previous events, how these webinars work in practice. So today's event is a teacher takeaway webinar, and this is a term we use for a series of webinars that we hope will offer local insight and practical continuous professional development ideas that support teachers engaged in English language teaching or indeed English-related educational contexts within Myanmar. So the webinar will offer local perspectives on global topics of interest, and we will be sharing relevant resources that can support teachers in their field of expertise. In this case, we'll be focusing on materials development in the gender context. Now, today's colleague, we have one speaker today who will be presenting in this area of expertise. We'll be exploring ideas and tips, and our fellow educator is from Myanmar. And these tips will be focusing on different materials that can help us to adapt or develop or indeed use different materials that support and consider gender context. The event will offer both principles and practical ideas for our audience to take away back to their classrooms, hence the name Teacher Takeaway for these events. Now, a few housekeeping rules for all of our events so far, and this will continue. We do ask that you don't put any personal information into the the chat box. No contact details, no promotional messages, please. We also ask that you're polite and considerate and respectful of everyone within today's event. And we're all here to support each other. And we very much hope that that's reflected in the chat box. You will notice, for those of you who haven't been here before or with us in these events, that the microphones and camera are off. And this is just to allow us to run a smooth event without interruption through accidental switching off or switching on of the microphone or the camera, etc. So all of the interaction today will be through the chat box and the Q&A box, which you should see on your screen at the moment. Often this will be in the top if you move the cursor to the top of the screen, particularly in Apple computers, and it should fall down. From the top of the screen, you'll see a menu. They'll have a Q&A box for questions and a chat box for any other comments. It may also be at the bottom of your screen, depending again on the device you have. So we have that functionality today to hear your voice and your contribution. We do have moderators in today's event, as we have in all events. So again, just going back to the point of being polite and considerate, we do not want to, but we may have to remove any participants that can't follow our housekeeping rules today. So thank you very much in advance for your cooperation. To ensure that our events are inclusive, we also have simultaneous interpretation with our events and sign language interpretation. Again, if you find the menu on the Zoom platform, you should see a globe icon. And on that globe icon, there is a choice to choose the language you would like to listen to, either English or Burmese, or indeed to turn on sign language interpretation so you can follow the webinar through that method. Now, if you do choose that, it may be the case that you can't see the PPTs or you can't see them clearly, so please do keep that in mind. And we do hope that this will help your experience and enhance your experience of today's webinar. As I've mentioned, we will ask questions through the Q&A box in Zoom. Again, those are for questions only. Comments will go in the chat, please. This is also being recorded, as we do with all of our events. And I think it's important to mention that because although we can't see the camera image and we can't hear the microphone image, if you do ask a question, we may read out the name of the person who has asked the question. So you can choose to ask anonymously if you prefer, just to ensure that your name isn't read out because the event is being recorded and your name will be heard by other people. At the end of today's session, we have a wonderful resource that I think will be very valuable for our audience, especially teachers who are looking to adapt material. But also we have a survey, and we ask that all teachers help us to give feedback on the events and fill in the survey. At the end of the survey, you will be able to receive an e-certificate. So we will be reminding everyone in the event about the e-certificate, but it's there for those of you who have joined us already. It's there at the end of the survey. Finally, in terms of housekeeping, we do have this email address. Please do contact us if you feel there's anything of concern in today's event, or if you'd like to raise any points that you felt haven't been covered within the chat of today's event, particularly in areas of sharing information, i.e. sensitive information, or something that has been said that may have been offensive or sensitive to others within the event. Please do let us know on this email address. We also have the link below for the child protection and safeguarding regulations that we have with the British Council, because it's something we take extremely seriously. So thank you again for any comments or feedback you can provide to us. Right, to today's event. Now, as I said, my name is Fraser Buick. I'm a senior academic consultant with the British Council, and it's my pleasure, and indeed the British Council's pleasure, to bring you to today's event. Our speaker today is Nang Ki Pyu Ong Cho, teacher of English at Teacher Nang IELTS, and she's very kindly allowed me to call her Nang for the duration of today's event. So welcome to Nang, and a very big thank you for taking part in today's event for her presentation. As I said, the presentation will be 40 minutes long. The event will be 70 minutes. We do intend to have a 20-minute Q&A after today's presentation, so please do put any questions you have in the Q&A box, and we'll be asking them to Nang after her presentation. I would say, as I say to all speakers and all audiences, we may not be able to ask all of the questions. We will ask as many as we can, particularly those with a teaching focus. But those that we do not answer in today's event, we will do our best to answer in writing and put it up with the recording of this video and the PPTs after the event. This will probably be 1 week from now, and you'll see the previous events with similar materials in the British Council registration page where you've registered for this event. Okay, so that was a very quick rundown of today's event, and thank you for those of you who have joined us for another event. You've probably already seen those slides, and thank you to those of you who are joining for the first time. I'd like to now hand you over to Nang for her presentation, and I'll see you again when I come back for the Q&A. Nang, I'll hand over to you.
Yes. Good afternoon.
We can see the slides.
Yes. So
Great.
as everybody, hello everyone. Can you see the slides? Yes. So today's topic, as everybody has already known that, this is mainly focused on materials development in the gender context. So nowadays, so many teachers create varieties of materials. Among them, gender is one of the contexts. So in your materials creation. So in that case, in your materials creation, this is one of the examples of gender context. Then how we can create your own materials as well as materials development in your language teachings, especially for the target audience needs. So that's why I choose this one to present everyone here. So before starting anything, let me start with a warm-up activity, because this is the main objective of this materials development in gender context. So everyone, could you please close your eyes, and could you please stretch your arms to both sides? So you are supposed to be a bird. Close your eyes, then please move your arms and fingers up and down, up and down. So the first wing, that means the left wing, the left wing is meant to be male, and the right wing is meant to be female. So when you move your arms up and down, that means you are flying, flying, and flying. So if one of the wings is broken, what do you feel? Can you fly high? Can you fly far, far away? You can imagine. Okay. Now you can open your eyes and put down your arms. Yes, this is the main objective of our activity. So gender equality, gender equity, and equal opportunities. All those will include in this context. So in that case, in our human society, we human beings are supposed to be birds. Left wing and right wing, those two are male and female. So in that case, if one of the wings is broken, so likewise, when we don't have equality, equity, and equal opportunity, our society can't be peaceful, can't go forward very easily. This is the main objective of the important role of gender. If so, in your materials creation, in your materials development, I'd like to encourage you to use authentic materials for your classroom. Why? I encourage you to use authentic materials for classroom use, because authentic materials are totally reflected to today's world situation and what is really happening in the entire world. So you can get such authentic materials, and in this very short presentation within 35 minutes, I will provide you as much as you can for the links for your authentic materials. So how we can create materials in terms of your target audience needs and how we can develop, those will also include in this 35 minutes webinar. So this is materials creation, and another one is gender context. As I said, the important role of gender context, and this is especially for English for specific purposes. In Myanmar, some people are really interested in gender, and I noticed that especially from the White Ribbon Day. So in this case, some people would like to improve their English language proficiency, and their major interest is gender. So in that case, this is also usable for English for specific purposes materials creation. So as I said, what is gender context in the previous activity and why it is important? Yes. Then how to create classroom materials in a gender in the gender context will come. Sorry, in the gender context will come. Next slides. So in that case, as I said, equal opportunity, equality, and equity. So in that case, so many people said gender, 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 but the core principles to measure the real gender context might be those three things: equal opportunity, equality, and equity. If so, what is the real meaning of equal opportunity? What is the real meaning of equality, and what is the real meaning of equity? So in order to realize those three things vividly, I'm going to create another activity again. This story, you've already known that, I hope, because this is the fox and the crane. The fox and the fox and the crane story. This is the fox, this is the crane. And you may think, oh, this is Aesop's fables, or this is for children. No, 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 this is totally related to gender context. Because now I will tell you some sentences and you have to identify. Yeah, this is the interactive activity, and I'd like to see your answers through the chat box. Okay, the fox and the crane. You've already seen that those two have different nature, different behavior, different characters, and different strengths and weaknesses. So in that case, one day, as everybody has already known that, the crane invited the fox to have dinner, and the crane invited all the cranes as well as the foxes from the forest. Yeah, let me make a little bit different story, even though the main theme is the same. Okay, all the cranes and all the foxes can come to have a big dinner together. Then the host, the crane, used that long neck jar. Okay, so in that case, let me ask you, invited all the cranes and invited all the foxes to come to have dinner together. All foxes, all cranes. So based on the previous slides, when all the cranes and all the foxes are invited to have dinner together, what do you think of the measurement indicator? Invited all the foxes, all the cranes represent equal opportunity or equality or equity. Could you please type your answers? Please kindly type your answer in the chat box. Invited all the foxes, all the cranes to come to have dinner together. Okay. Okay, then. Yes, some said equal opportunity, some said equality. Okay. Yes, then one more. Let me continue again. In the forest, there are 300 cranes and 500 foxes. Listen. There are 300 cranes and 500 foxes. So in that case, because of the space here, I'd like to reduce the number of participants. So in that case, again, listen, 200 cranes and 200 foxes. So I'd like to make changes a little more because of the space. 200 cranes and 200 foxes to come to have dinner together. 200 cranes, 200 foxes. Okay. Okay, then I don't want to give you the answers now, because by the end of the stories, I'm definitely sure you will realize and recognize those three things. So among 300 cranes, 200 cranes are invited. Among 500 foxes, 200 foxes are invited. So you can think of the total number of cranes and the total number of foxes. Example, 2 out of 3 from the cranes and 2 out of 5 from the foxes. So this is one of the considerable factors. Then one more, when they come to have dinner, if the container is here, long neck jar, the cranes can eat it, but not the fox. But if the container is flat plate, the fox can eat, but not the cranes. So in that case, what do you think of such different containers? Long neck jar and flat containers, it represent what? What do you think of that one? Yes. Yes. Okay, then. Now I'm going to explain to you. At the very first time when I invite, everyone can come to have dinner together. So at the very first time, you may think, oh, everyone, both the fox and the crane can participate. You may think both the cranes and the fox have equal opportunity. You may think like that because both the cranes and the fox can participate. So actually, sometimes equal opportunity is not the accurate measurement indicator for the gender context to get equality and especially for the equity. Because equal opportunity, when we consider for the total number of the cranes, 2 out of 3 and 2 out of 5. This is very good example for nowadays classrooms. For example, when you provide scholarships in your classrooms, in total 100. Yes, in the total 100. But boys are 10 and girls are 90. But you will, so boys are 10, girls are 90. But you will provide your scholarship opportunities. Oh, because this is our equal opportunity. Everyone can apply for the scholarship. So in that case, you may think you provide equal opportunity. Then you announce 5 each. 5 boys and 5 girls will be selected. So in that case, 5 boys and 5 girls. Boys will be selected 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10. Girls will be selected 5 out of 90. So do you think this is equal opportunity because 5 out of 10 and 5 out of 90? No. Then this is not equality. You may think, oh, 5 boys and 5 girls, both are equality. No, because we have to consider for the equity. Equity represents the equal ratio. Likewise, here, the container, the long neck jar and the flat plate, those are the container. Then one more. Again, in order to be selected for the scholarship opportunities, you've got at least 5 feet, example, 5 feet and 6 inches of height and 2 years experience of attending my sections, and your grade should be A+. So in that case, varieties of criterion. In that case, all the criterias are usable for both gender. This is also considerable factors. This is the main key. So equality sometimes doesn't work properly again. Because equality nowadays, so many people yelled and so many people are shouting, equality, gender equality. If so, what about the equity? Are you sure this is equality? What about the equity? It is for the considerable factors, and I'd like to highlight on that one. So equal opportunity, you declare or you announce, everyone can participate. I would say sometimes equal opportunity can be sugar-coated. Because in front of the others, you declare, our school is very, very equal and fair, and we provide scholarships, equal opportunity, and everyone can take part in this scholarship. Then one more, equality, 5 boys and 5 girls. So you can show such sugar-coated words, but the in-depth consideration is, what about the equity? What about the total number of students? And what about the criteria you set up? So this is the facts I would like to highlight on. So in that case, when we invite, everyone can participate. So yeah, you provide the opportunity to everyone. You provide that opportunity. So you can use the word equal opportunity. But my point of view, it's not enough. No, it's not enough. Then one more. Oh, you're very fair, very fair. 5 boys and 5 girls, like that. 200 cranes and 200 foxes. So this is very equal proportion. 1:1. Are you sure equal proportion? So yes, 200 cranes and 200 foxes. Yes, 1:1, 200 cranes and 200 foxes. So this is also, again, sugar-coated equality. So in that case, what about equity? The total number of participants you have to consider. Then what about your container? When the participants come, so what about the container? So this is my point. And when we think of gender context, equal opportunity is good to declare, but I'm afraid of the fair square. Then equality, yes, you can declare, and it may be sugar-coated, and you can think of that one. So equity, we have to dig out the equity, the how we will dig out, how we will find out, how we will focus on that equity. So let's continue. Here. This is a true measurement indicator for equity and equality. 200 foxes, 200 cranes. Yes, it may be equality. 200 foxes, 200 cranes, equality. But for the equity, what about the total number of cranes? What about the total number of foxes? Equity. Then what's your main objective of equity? If you focus on equality, see, such marginalized or people who come from very few opportunities, very little opportunity, and such vulnerable, that one can't get the goal. So that one has to try very hard. So equity is the measurement indicator. So in that case, equal opportunity is just inviting to provide all, but in the real measurement indicator. In your inclusive participation, what is the real measurement? What is the real indicator to measure whether it is totally true or totally fair or totally usable in the reality? This is the key of equity. Then one more thing. Some students, not some students, some people are kind of, yes, a little bit biased, because gender equality means women's rights. Women should be the first priority. That means we don't need to hate men, because this is just believing in equal rights for all genders. This is not for bias, and it's not about hating men. Then it's not about women better than men. So that's why in the first activity, you all are supposed to be a bird, and I'm including a bird. And when we want to fly high, when we want to far away, both wings should be balancing forever. So that's why this is not about women being better than men, and this is not about men being better than women. No, women are not better than men. Men are not better than women, because gender is just an identity. Gender is not. Okay, then. So then the next one. Oh, no. The previous slide. Right here. So rights and responsibilities for both men and women plus all genders are the key elements here. So that's why. But in terms of the culture, we have to consider for the cultural aspects. Even though we are talking about gender, in our country, one of the Southeast Asian countries, yes, girls' education long ago were left behind. So in that case, if women or girls are not educated, gender-based violence can happen, and we have to get the awareness of sexual harassment and some harmful child marriage negative factors. If we educate girl, she can educate her kids. So that's why an educated girl is more likely to grow up healthy, safe, and empowered her life and her future. So that's why in the gender context, almost all the content, almost all the materials are mainly focused on girls' side. So creation for classroom materials, in terms of the gender context, we can use such authentic materials, films, documentary. So you may ask, what are the differences between films and documentary? So films are for example, this is makeup films. It can be a true story, or it can make up a story. This is just for entertaining. But for documentary, yeah, this is a true story. This is a true story. Yes, for some questions, but in the Q&A section, I'm sure to reply and to answer. Okay. So films, documentary is based on a true story, and it can empower more because this is totally reflected to the real situation. Then one more, songs. Music has power. So if the rhythms, the lyrics are powerful, so women can have more confidence and men can get the awareness of the gender balance. Then role play. Yes, reflecting to the real situation, varieties of role plays we can create. One more discussion, like panel discussion here, journal entry writing, so weekly or monthly or fortnightly, so it depends on a teacher's choice, poster, presentation, and debate. So one more, not only those things, here, so far as I know, so many people here are educators and teachers, and you've got your experience of using classroom materials and to conduct or to teach your students in terms of the interactive ways. So my suggestion, could you please type, based on your experience, what other materials you used in your classroom in the chat box, please. So those are my examples. And in your experience, what kind of materials you use to teach your students to conduct your teacher training programs, then to deliver your TOT programs? So what are your materials? This is kind of sharing your real experience to the others, and the others can know your real experience. Okay. Yes, playing games, free talk, good. Free talk, chit-chatting, exactly. Group work, pair work, yes, beautiful. Storytelling, yes, very powerful storytelling. Projects, exactly, yes. I love projects, yeah, project-based learning. Yes, film creating, beautiful. So those are my pieces of examples. Then you can expand based on your experience. Yes, so I love the ideas, and I totally forget to write it down here, storytelling and project-based learning. Yes, thank you very much. Free chat, yes, drama, role play. Okay, then. So let's continue for the other. Yep, films, documentary, songs, role play, discussion, journal writing, poster presentation, debate, project-based learning, then storytelling. Yes, so project-based learning and storytelling. Yes, I totally forgot to put. So you can put your ideas, and this is the main objective of Teachers Takeaway series. Not only those examples, but also your real examples you can use in the reality. Yes, thank you very much for your active participation. Then here, talk show, yes, talk show. Then here, film. This is a little bit long ago. Yeah, this is an old film, but still usable. Because Keira Knightley is very popular, very famous, and this is very powerful to the students. So in that case, let me share my experience. Yes, actually, I plan to ask your idea how we are going to create such films to use in the classroom, but because of the time, let me share my experience to you. So before playing the video clips to my students, so I just show the picture and brainstorming first. So this is kind of digging out their idea based on their pop-up ideas. So I asked, so what do you think of the pictures, and what would it be? What about the content, and what is the main idea, main theme? And they, in terms of the picture, women here. Then, and I asked in terms of the culture aspect, what do you think of playing football in some countries' culture? Long ago, even in Myanmar, what do you think of women's football game and women's participating in football. So such culture aspect and gender aspect can be blended together, and it is also called integrated learning. All 4 skills can be included in one film, but such integrated learning are also usable in the other contexts. So this is one of the examples of Bend It Like Beckham before playing the video clips based on the picture, then guessing, then one more, vocabulary. So based on the pictures, what words might be included in the film? So vocabulary. First, brainstorming. Second, vocabulary lessons. Then, in terms of the culture, yes, culture and gender aspect. Then showtime, yes, but not the whole complete film. When it is climax, I paused it and brainstorming again, and based on their dialogue, so pronunciation, word linking, natural conversation, speaking activity, and listening activity can be together. Then by the end of the section, yes, journal entry, journal writing, and 2 things for the writing. So if you were the director, conditional tense, second conditional, such grammar lessons are also included in their writing. Yes. Yes, subtitle, okay. I'd like to give varieties of examples. So that's why this is just sharing my experience, how I used such activities for that film. Then song section. Yes, song section. This is Fraser, will you share the QR code, or I can continue to share?
Please continue, Nang. My colleague A will share in the chat box the link.
Oh, yes. So this is the song, and in that case, what I use for that song. Yeah, in that case, at the very first time, I don't show the video clip, just play that link and like that. So let me give you one more examples, because I have a pinch of time. And yes, so let me share how I use this one. And you can listen to the song. Yeah. Then based on the song, could you please write, yes, 5 to 10 words based on your hearing. Yes, now I'm playing.
We can't hear anything. Nang, are you playing something?
Okay, then, yeah, here. Yes.
I can zoom fast. I can climb high. I can be a superhero. Watch me fly. I can be brave. I can be kind. I can be a rock star. Watch me shine. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. I can be anything. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. I can be anything. Yes, I can. I can be a boy. I can be a girl. I can be a ballerina. Watch me twirl.
Okay, so before completing the song, let me stop it here. Yes, like that, before watching the video clip, the students have to listen to the song and write some words based on their hearing. Then I showed the video clips, and they can check with the subtitle, and they can check their spelling and their words with the subtitle. This is one of the activities I used in the classroom. Then sometimes I created some words, and the students have to touch the word when they hear. So I set up a table, draw a table. So supposed to be 3 rows, 3 columns table, and that means 9 slots you will have. So each cell, 1 word is included. That means altogether 9 words. Then I sent email to them. I sent email to them for those words, and they can print it out, and when they hear, they can touch the word. So this is also a songs activity for their listening as well as gender context. Yeah. Then some students have already written some films. Yes, thank you very much for sharing your movie's title. Then one more, Gender Equality ESL Lessons website is here. This is very good and very usable. So ESL songs for that one. I'm going to share this one again. Yes, this one. Oh. So this is ESL website, and gender, mainly focus on gender context.
And now we're not seeing any slides at the moment. Are you sharing?
Yes, I'm sharing, and it's uploading, I think. So
okay, I think it's coming.
Yeah. Sorry, it's a little bit slow. Yes, this is ESL songs. And one thing what I like is grammar and topics are also included. Example, Beyonce, if I were a boy, so you can teach second conditional tense, conditional tenses, equality, gender equality. So already make up lessons here. Then Shania Twain, yes, third person singular, equality, gender equality, jobs, nouns, present simple, present tense. So you can teach such grammatical lessons through lyrics and songs. Listening, grammar, vocabulary, then talking about the songs, speaking. Listening, speaking, vocabulary, grammar can be included in your lessons. Okay. Okay, then. So after that, let me continue my PowerPoint slide. Then another one here. Another one is for the discussion. Yes. ESL songs, then another discussion for here. So this is very usable in terms of today's world situation. This is especially for White Ribbon Campaign. So for women's rights, for women's issue, UN Women created those activities. And here you go. I'm going to show it to you. You may be a little bit dizzy from here to there. Yes. So in that case, discussion, how you can create your discussion. So this one. I'm sharing this one. Again, at the very first time, I won't show this one. The students have to listen, and what I will instruct the students, note taking, because this is interviewer and interviewee. By imitating such interview, your students can be interviewer and interviewee in their speaking. So panel discussion, the students can use such activity.
I'm a singer-songwriter from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and I grew up and lived in Malaysia my whole life. 2 years ago, I moved to LA just to start on my music career here, and I'm really happy to be here, actually.
What is your involvement with the UN Women song called One Woman?
Well, I was approached by UN Women to record this amazing song called One Woman. And, I listened to the song and I read the lyrics. And
yes, so those are about the UN Women. And yes. Based on the interview, the songs will come. So this is for the discussion activity and note-taking. First, just play the recording and the students can take notes. But you can teach Cornell note-taking methods for this one, especially for their well-organized note-taking skills. You can show, first they can take notes, whatever they want in terms of their prior knowledge. It can be it can be using gist or bullet points or dash the way they want to. Then you can teach Cornell's note-taking method. This is very well organized, and this is very effective for taking meeting minutes, taking notes, and academic ways of presentation when they go to listen, so they can take notes, very well organized pattern. So you can show before using Cornell note-taking method and after using Cornell note-taking method, so how they can see progress. So this is very obviously seen, and they know themselves in terms of self-listening skills as well as speaking skills by listening to such interview, UN Women interview, and the vocalist, not vocalist, the singer from the Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Then the students can imitate in their speaking activity in terms of their listening, so they can create their own discussion, panel discussion in the classroom. Then yes, how many slides? So after this one, I have only 2 slides. Yeah. Then the song. These days, and for that song, the UN Women invited all women around the world. So in that case, the song, and you can, as for the project-based learning, some students have recently talked about. So for that one, for that UN Women song, you can show that one and encourage the students to take part in the project-based learning. So this is about the song. Now, can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Uh,
So yeah.
Now, just to let you know, we're at just after 45 now. So if you'd like to present your final slides, we can move into the Q&A.
Yes. So this is for how to use that one. And finally, briefing notes for that one. Briefing note is that one. So briefly for this section, briefly for this webinar. Oh, no. This is the last one for the briefing notes. Yes. Personalization, experiential learning, lifelong learning, and knowledge towards skills. You can encourage the students to write journal entry in terms of their gender context. And this is overall point of view for the whole section. If you have a plan to use materials creation by gender context, set up the core principles of inclusive participation and inform participants. And if it is possible, use integrated learning and provide authentic materials to empower active participations. Yes, thank you. And sorry for a little bit overshooting.
That's absolutely fine. Thank you for your presentation, and thank you for the resources you've shared. There we go. I think there's perhaps a few small signal issues with your internet. Some things may not have been heard fully by the audience, but I think we covered everything within the slides, and I think they're very useful in identifying different materials we can use, particularly authentic materials, but also the links you shared. And just to let everyone know, in case you didn't notice, my colleague A was sharing the links in the chat box, so they are available to you directly if you'd like to copy and paste them, but they will be available on the PPT when we share it after today's event. Now, we have a few questions in the Q&A. Thank you very much for our audience for providing those questions. Before we move into that, I'd like to ask you something perhaps from my own perspective, and I think you touched upon at the end some authentic materials, but quite different materials. So there were songs, for example, and then there was a podcast entry, I believe, on the UN website. Do you think there are difficulties in adapting these authentic materials for lower level learners of English?
Yes, for the lower level of English, we can simplify the content. And during these days, ChatGPT is very useful for all the teachers. So in terms of the elementary level, you can use simplified version for the content. Yes.
I think I remember from my CELTA days, we used the mantra grade the task, not the text, because once you start to simplify the text, you lose the authenticity of the text. Would you agree with that, or do you think you would prefer to simplify the language in the text?
Yes, based on the participants' level, if they can cope with the high level, so I will use directly. But if their level is low, so I will make simplified version. So it will depend on the participants' level of English proficiency. So that's why adaptation is always needed. And not only ChatGPT, the other AI tools are usable to adjust the original content to simplified version or to upgrade the level. Yeah, so
Well, it's interesting because when we apply ChatGPT or similar AI tools and they change the text, would you still say it's an authentic text? I guess this is a bigger question because it's no longer the original text. Perhaps that's not a question for today, but do you have any opinion on that in terms of the content?
Yeah, so in my experience, if the student's level is frankly speaking, if the student's level is lower than the original text level, so I use two things. The first one is using authentic materials using the original version. Then the second one is creating by simplified version. Then I show the students first simple and easy level, then I encourage the students. So if you would like to learn more, for example, project-based learning, if you wish to explore all the materials by yourself, or if you wish to expand your knowledge and language proficiency, here you are, those are the authentic texts and you can use them. But in order to cope with all those original texts, you have to try your level best to improve your language proficiency. So this is also another way of motivating to the students to learn more and to be smarter and smarter and to be higher and higher their English level and to try their best.
So I guess there's two ways to approach it. There's, of course, as you say, simplifying the text in some way to make it more appropriate for the learner's level. But there's also the opportunity to grade the task, make the task more achievable and more scaffolded for that learner rather than to change the text. So this could offer differentiation for different levels of learners if we can choose one or the other. Of course, if you have students of a higher level, simplifying the text may not be appropriate for them. So I guess there's a choice there to be made by teachers. If we actually, I'd like to move to the Q&A box now. So we have some questions here, and I think one is going back to the earlier part of your webinar when I think you had some really nice diagrams to highlight equity and equality, and I think that got a really nice clear message across through the PPTs. The question is, can you elaborate a little bit more about the difference between equal opportunities and equality? Just before I ask for your answer, I notice a few people are putting their hands up. We cannot open the microphones, so please put any questions you have into the Q&A box. I do apologize, but we won't be able to take any oral questions through the platform today. Nang, if you could perhaps...
Yes, so equal opportunity is just declaring or just announcing. So both men and women can participate. So this is just providing equal opportunity. This is providing, for example, both girls and boys in the classroom can apply for the scholarship. So this is just providing equal opportunity. This is equal opportunity. Then for the equality, and if you say 5 boys and 5 girls, this is equality, equal proportion, equality. 5 boys and 5 girls, this is equality. Then we have to consider the ratio. The ratio represents equity. 5 out of 10 and 5 out of 90. This is equity. So in that case, equal opportunity and equality, those two are slightly different. The differences between those two, equal opportunity means you declare both boys and girls can apply for the scholarships. Oh, both boys and girls can apply. At the very first time, you will be happy and you may think, oh, the teacher is very fair. The teacher provides the opportunity for both girls and boys. This is equal opportunity. But for equality, yes, equality can be mean if there is no equity. Equality here, 5 boys and 5 girls. So if you don't think very deeply, the equality here, because equal numbers of boys, equal number of girls, you may think this is equality. But
So, I mean, you could apply this to group work, I assume, within classrooms as well. So one is really saying it's open to anyone, therefore giving an equal opportunity. But when we talk about equity, we have to actually manage it to some extent to ensure the ratios in relation to the gender are representative and equal across the comparison. Okay, thank you for that. So I think this leads on to the next question, and I'd like to take this to the classroom if I can, because I think we have a lot of teachers in our audience today, and the question is from Yen Nang Plun, and I hope I pronounced that correctly. How can we ensure equal participation and opportunities for all students, regardless of gender? And do you think you could perhaps encapsulate that into a classroom context, maybe in activities, for example?
Yeah, so sometimes domineering. So for example, if girls, the number of girls are more than the boys, so domineering or active participations from girls can be more than boys. So in that case, inclusive participation and individual assessment takes the pivotal role. So in order to check inclusive participation, sometimes some boys are timid and shy because number of girls are more than number of boys. So in that case, we have to pay attention to inclusive participation, and that's why the last slide briefing notes I said that one is inclusive participation, and briefing note means set up core principles. So set up the core principles first, and inclusive participation takes the pivotal role, and individual assessment will come inform my participants first. So this is the way I'm exercising now. Yeah.
Okay. I see there's still some confusion over equity in the chat. One question asks, if we allow to study 50% of women applicants and 50% of men applicants, is this equity? And from my understanding, it's not. Equity would be if there are 100 people, 90 are women, 10 are men, then equity would be 1 man and 9 women if there were 10 chosen rather than 50-50. So it's relative to the number of each group.
Yes, exactly.
And that's where the balance comes from. So thank you for putting the question there in the chat. So there are a few questions about LGBTQ and whether this should be brought into the classroom context. I think we can touch on this if you think this is something that could also be represented within classroom content.
Yeah. So in that case, the very first experience of delivering training in terms of the gender context. So what I highlight first is gender identity. So gender is just an identity. Gender is not a quality. So I introduced the very first thing is gender identity is gender identity. It doesn't concern with quality. Quality can be from all gender. So gender identity and gender quality, those two are totally different. So for LGBT in the classroom, so based on their gender identity, he or she can be whoever, it doesn't matter. But the quality is on the other hand. So gender identity and quality, those two are not concerned with each other.
Okay, thank you. Just going back again to the classroom aspect, Arpita Saha asks, it's quite a long, quite double question here, but in every level and in every classroom, there are different types of learners, such as visual, auditory, kinesthetic. I think we're going into neuroscience there to some extent. But it becomes a challenge to conduct a class with proper context and equal participation. In this case, how can we make lessons more achievable for all of the students? And should we teach using different materials for these students? So I think this is more about level and ability than gender.
So that's why here I showed my examples, more films and songs rather than the other news or articles reading, because songs and films, so regardless of language proficiencies level, regardless of their gender identity, people can involve with it, so involve in their activity with their joyful and energetic ways of participation. So if you wish to start with your classroom to be lively and to be energetic participation, please use positive vibes lyrics, songs, and positive vibes films. So it would be achievable, I think. So based on the learners' autonomy, I would say learners' autonomy, you can promote the learners' autonomy, the learners' intrinsic participation, intrinsic motivation. So sometimes students are afraid of their levels of proficiency and their gender identity. If they wish to learn more based on their intrinsic motivation, they forget about their level, they forget about their gender identity because they enjoy.
Yeah, well, that goes beyond the gender, perhaps. And I think we're getting somewhat sidetracked with some of the questions into the equity equality part, and we're moving away from the classroom. And that bigger question, I think, certainly deserves a bigger discussion than today's focus. Certainly one thing I'd say when we talk about visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and of course that's these are elements that are challenged within language learning, whether they actually do exist. That's another debate perhaps to be had. But from my perspective, there are activities we can do that include a number of these different facets. For example, using the walls and posters, having students work together on projects that really involve these posters can involve discussion between the students. It can involve moving to the posters. It can involve reading and listening to others' opinions. So that these activities that get students up from the desk can actually include a lot of these learning preferences and learning habits that are mentioned here. I'd like to actually kind of move on to something back to gender actually, but in relation to the classroom materials, because we've talked about using authentic materials, and it's wonderful if we have these resources available to us, and there are many resources out there. However, if a teacher really wants to use a certain text, how can they consider adapting that text to those different levels? Could you give perhaps some suggestions of how they might adapt materials?
Oh, yes. So let me share with the multi-level classroom management experience. When I have to deal with multi-level students, in that case, I use not only VAKT, but also 8 kinds of multiple intelligences MI. MI and VACT, those two can combine together to create the activities, even though the teachers have limited materials, so they can expand their activities in terms of VACT and 8 kinds of multiple intelligences. So the teacher can use limited resources, but expand activities encouraging the language proficiency. So this is how to deal with multi-level students in a classroom.
You also think it's valuable in terms of the questions that teachers ask. I think topics in relation to gender and considering gender within texts, it could be gender roles, for example, gender bias, representation of gender within different materials. How important are the questions that teachers ask in supporting the development of students' understanding of these areas?
Okay, then. So could you please clarify a little more? I'm thinking.
Sure. Let's consider critical thinking, for example, and having the students think more deeply about different topics. I think many teachers would argue that the questions they ask are almost as important as the tasks they give to the students. Would you agree with that?
For the critical thinking, instead of giving the answer right or wrong for their opinion, my suggestion is focusing on their reasons. So if we teach critical thinking lessons, the students' opinion is second priority. The students giving reasons, the students' reasons. So the students have that idea why. So this is kind of realizing the students' critical thinking as well as sometimes creativity. So instead of focusing on the students' opinions or the teacher's opinion, and as a teacher or as a teacher trainer, we have to follow up why, the reasons why. So the reasons represent their opinion. So in terms of the iceberg, their opinion comes out, this is just above the water. But under the water, the reasons why they think like that. So when we realize and recognize a true and a real as well as a realistic reason, we can continue for that one.
So, I mean, that's a way of perhaps helping students to identify different areas of this topic. I think you highlighted, and I think the questions in the chat have highlighted, there is still some discussion over equity, equality, and perhaps it's something that we haven't always thought about deeply. And these questions the teacher asks can, as you say, go under the water to see the larger part of the iceberg, the deeper learning and understanding.
Yes,
so I think that's really useful.
Yes.
I'd like to finish off today's questions. And again, to reiterate, we will be looking at all the questions after today's event to try and answer them to place with the presentation and recording on the British Council website next week. But I'd like to go to a question just to have a forward-looking perspective as we close. And it's from Zayar Ong. And it's, could you discuss or highlight some of the potential challenges and opportunities in adapting gender education materials for different age groups within the ELT context? What challenges and opportunities are there for adapting gender education materials? Can you hear me?
I can hear.
Did you hear the question? Are you looking for something on the...
I'm reading some students, not students, some teachers, not students, some teachers question and feedback here, because
Okay.
here one of the participants is highlighting this one. A teacher is LGBT and his or her students don't pay respect to him, to her. So in that situation, which is wrong, teacher or students?
Okay.
So I'm because this one is sending quite often, and it catch up my attention. That's why, sorry, I can hear you, and
Right.
I'm
okay.
reading.
Well, I think. Okay, though. Thank you for that. I think unfortunately we're out of time for the questions now, so we'll have to put that question into writing. So thank you, Zayar Ong, for your questions. I apologise that we can't answer it today in today's event. We are just out of time. Nang, thank you so much for your presentation today, and thank you for answering those questions. Again, we will be answering all of the questions in writing after today's event, and we'll be presenting them with the PPT and recordings. Now, I have a few other small slides to share with you. If you can bear with me for a second. I hope you can see my screen here. We had the Q&A, and thank you, Nang, for that. Today, I'd also like to highlight this, which is the link to our survey for today's event. Please provide us with your feedback. We would love to hear it from you. It really helps us to improve future events and really look at what areas and topics we can focus on for future events. You will also receive the e-certificate for attending today's event upon completion of the survey. I think this resource, I've been really excited to share this with you. This is from a different British Council project, actually in Japan, where we analysed different textbooks for gender representation and gender roles. And from that, the Access Toolkit for Teachers was created. you can follow this QR code to the page and download the toolkit. And this is something teachers can use to analyze and break down their own materials to consider how they represent different genders within the role and representation, and allow you to adapt as necessary. So I think this tool is a very exciting one, and I'm sure it'll be very valuable for teachers moving forward. Please do check it out. We have the 5th of this block of teacher takeaway webinars next week. And again, it's at the same time, and I will be joining you as the facilitator for this 5th webinar. We have San Min, Professor at University of Global Peace, and Kang Kyu Tut, Education Advisor at the British Embassy, and they'll be discussing English in a multilingual world. So please do join us for that. The registration can be found here on this QR code. We also have, again, very exciting, the registration page is now open for the ASEAN Teaching English Online Conference. So again, another QR code for you to scan here. I do apologize, we love our QR codes here at the British Council. Please do register. You can register for numerous events. There are, as you can see here, a number of sessions. Week 1 to 2 sessions of the conference are now available, and 3 to 4 also you'll find details of that there, but there are over 20 events for you to join if you so wish, so please do join. Finally, here is what you'll find. This is the registration page. When you go to the QR code and you follow the instructions, you will be able to register with the Zoom account. I'm sure everyone will be familiar with that as you're here with us today on a similar event. You can check out more information on the British Council Facebook page. Again, a QR code for you here. For many of you who joined us previously, you will already have seen this QR code, but for those of you who hadn't, please do scan and join us for more tips, resources, and notifications for future events. And that's us for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us again. It's been my pleasure, and thank you for your questions. Again, we will be answering as many as we can after today's event from the Q&A. And thank you so much for the contributions in the chat. Finally, thank you so much to Nang for her presentation and her contribution today. And hopefully, I'll be seeing everyone next week for the next event. I will just close very finally by saying that I apologize for those of you who are raising your hand. I do see it on my screen, but we don't have the facility to engage with those who are raising their hands today. So I do apologize for that. Thank you for your other contributions. Okay, I'm signing off now. Have a wonderful weekend ahead, and I hope to see you all next week. Bye for now.